For the first time in history of African democratization, a ruling has been made by a court nullifying irregular elections of a president. This is a precedent-setting ruling. They are very historical.
In this company, if you give me 1 million, I can guarantee you will make an extra $1 million.
I just like to walk in. I wouldn't need a special costume. Just dress like this. And I'd fly in. What? Bullshit.
Bullshit.
Bullshit. Bullshit. Bullshit.
Now, in a historic ruling, Kenya's Supreme Court says last month's presidential election was flawed and the judges have ordered a rerun. The victor, President Uhuru Kenyatta, says the decision is political, but he will accept the judgment. He'd won the closely fought ballot by just over 1 million votes, but the opposition claimed there were widespread irregularities. It's the first time a legal challenge to a presidential vote has been successful anywhere in Africa. And Soy reports now from Nairobi.
Celebrating a new lease of life, veteran politician Raila Odinga gets one more chance to run for president. A last-minute decision to challenge the result of the presidential election paid off.
The presidential election held on 8th August 2017 was not conducted in accordance with the Constitution and the applicable law, rendering the declared results invalid, null and void.
A shocking and rare judgment. The judges did not limit themselves to what happened on election day until the results were announced. Rather, they looked at the electoral process in its totality, from voter registration to civic education, as well as the campaigning and the procurement of electoral materials. And so, in a sense, this judgment sets a strong precedent for election disputes globally and a high threshold for the conduct of elections. Outside the court, celebrations erupted among opposition supporters. It's now back to the drawing board for presidential candidates.
As much as I disagree with it, I respect it. I disagree with it because, as I have said, millions of Kenyans queued, made their choice, and 6 people have decided that they will go against the will of the people.
The court directed the Electoral Commission to organize a fresh election, but the opposition says it has no confidence in the current commission.
They have committed criminal acts. Most of them actually belong to jail. And therefore we are going to ask for prosecution of all the Electoral Commission officers who have caused this monstrous crime against the people of Kenya.
The Constitution states that a new election must be held within 60 days. For now, though, opposition supporters across the country are basking in the glory of the court victory.
And international observers, including the former U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, declared the election largely free and fair. So this Supreme Court decision really is momentous.
I want to start out by asking you about Odinga's comments that the results of the election are fake and factitious, about these allegations that certain voting machines were defunct. How do you respond to that? What have you observed?
Well, we observed a election process, more than 400 observers from 9 different international missions all agreed that the basic process of carrying out the election was quite positive. There were little aberrations here and there. But at this point in time, I want to be mindful the election is still going on. They're still counting. The process is still underway. But we believe that the Elections Commission in Kenya has put together a process that will allow each and every vote's integrity to be proven and to be protected. We think that the open process we witnessed, where Every party agent was present, where they all agreed on what a disqualified ballot was, what a qualified ballot was. They were present when the ballots were opened, present when they were closed. They even were asked, do you agree with the final tally? And after there was all agreement, the tally was sent in on what is called this 34A document. So there is a way to go back. If anything was changed, if anything was electronically fiddled with, there is a way to go back and absolutely ascertain what happened in the polling station. So by paper ballots, there is a protection of each and every Kenyan's vote.
That's right. Well, the international observers were criticized for rushing to endorse a process even before the final result was announced. But they did also emphasize the importance of seeking legal means of dispute resolution. And we believe that that pressure is what led to the petition that was decided today. The judges made a radical decision. It goes against the norm, even in the Commonwealth, where judges generally tend to show restraint. But then, by so doing, they have demonstrated their independence.
For the first time in history of African democratization, a ruling has been made by a court nullifying irregular elections of a president. This is a president-setting ruling. They are very historical. We have no faith at all in the Electoral Commission as currently constituted. They have committed criminal acts. Most of them actually belong to jail. And therefore we are going to ask for prosecution of all the Electoral Commission officers who have caused this monstrous crime against the people of Kenya.
Emotions ran high at the city mortuary on Monday morning after the family of Peter Msando identified his body. The IEBC ICT manager was found dead in Kikuyu, Kiambu County, while his vehicle was recovered near Thika Road Mall in Roysambu. Msando's left hand was broken and his body had several injuries indicating he suffered a painful death.
Yeah, we learned with shock the killing and murder of our employee, Chris Msando. There's no doubt that he was tortured and murdered. I know post-mortem will be done. In our mind as a commission, the only issue is who killed him and why. And that's a question that must be answered. We are a few days from elections, and we all know it's the duty of the government to provide security for all Kenyans. And at this point in time, I demand from the government that they provide security for all employees of IEBC for us to give Kenyans a free and fair election.
A body of a woman with similar damages was brought in shortly after Msando's. It is yet to be confirmed if the woman was in the company of Msando and if she was a collateral damage in the murder. Msando's body was taken to Lee Funeral Home, even as investigations into the incident continue.
Severely tortured and strangled to death. That's the conclusion of the autopsy on Chris Msando. The head of technology for Kenya's electoral board is at the center of a murder investigation. It is raising questions about the legitimacy of the general and presidential election on Tuesday. So let's take a closer look at the candidates and what's at stake. The presidential race is a rematch of 4 years ago between the winner, then President Uhuru Kenyatta, and former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. Kenyatta is the son of Kenya's first president. Odinga is the second son of Kenya's first vice president. The kidnapping, torture, and murder of the senior-most election official. How are your constituents reacting to that? Ken, I want to start with you.
I think it's really rather shocking, and we hope that this high-profile murder of Chris Msando, as well as other murders that have happened recently. Last year we had the murder of lawyers Willie Kimani, will be investigated and quickly responded to so we get justice. Remember, Chris Msando had a very sensitive job in terms of this technology at the IEBC, and the British government and the US government have offered assistance by the FBI and the Scotland Yard to investigate and bring to book the culprits. And I hope the government of Kenya will accept that assistance to make sure that the investigations are thorough and credible so that people don't cast aspersions as to who was involved in his death. But it's very worrying, and I hope that we will still have credible elections, even though somebody who was very important for the technology aspect of these elections has been eliminated.
Obviously, it's been, with the history of elections in Kenya, it's been extremely tense leading up to this. Having said that, was there any indication that something like this could happen?
No, definitely. This was like the black swan event of this election. Much as there's been tension regarding the closeness of the race, some of that was mitigated because of the fact of devolution, because governors are spending more time campaigning. There's less focus on the national race. But this definitely was something that came out of the blue. It's that black swan event that ramps up the tension and the pressure on the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to get things right this time around. And it makes things even more sensitive for the country going forward into these last few days before the election. It's sort of like a 2 steps forward, 2 steps back issue with the IEBC. And unfortunately, the death of Msando has just hurt all of the momentum that they had built towards going into a free, fair and credible election, even though it's highly unlikely that he'd be the only person who knows or manages the information and that system as he would have.
I do actually want to ask you a little bit more about that, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say that obviously the people most directly affected by the death of Chris Msando is his family, obviously, but because of the role he had, that's why it's important to discuss the impact on the country at large. Alan, is that, obviously the ethnic tensions are real, but is that an oversimplification of the complex issues that Kenya is facing?
An extreme oversimplification. You see, tribalism is always the funnel that all of our issues are expressed through, because people, especially during a hyper-political period, are asked to experience them through that tribal lens. But the truth of the matter is corruption is an issue. Hunger is a real issue. Impunity is an issue. All of these things are things that the Jubilee government has tried to deal with to some level, to some measures, but to a large extent, especially with regard to impunity, with regard to solving crimes, extrajudicial killings. That's been a very big issue for this government.
After a 3-day wait for the results of a heated presidential election that brought the country to a near standstill, a winner was finally declared.
I therefore wish to declare Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta
Uhuru Kenyatta won re-election by a significant margin, defeating his long-time opponent Raila Odinga. Uhuru made an emotional and conciliatory speech to a nation divided by one of the most hotly contested elections in history.
To our brothers who were worthy competitors, we are not enemies. We are all citizens of one republic. As with any competition, there shall always be winners and there shall be losers, but we all belong to one great nation called Kenya, and I extend a hand of friendship.
Election officials had spent most of Thursday and Friday verifying results sent into the National Tallying Center from all corners of the country. Moments before the results were declared, agents of the opposition candidate Raila Odinga walked out in protest, saying they did not want to be party to the process of the declaration of the results. They say this is not the last we have heard of this matter. Raila claims the results are fictitious. The long-time opposition leader first alleged that a hacker had gained access to the Electoral Commission's database and then accused the Commission of concealing the actual results, which he said proved he was the winner. The Commission denied both claims but did confirm there had been a failed hacking attempt. At one point, the opposition claimed victory, fanning already rising tensions.
I think this has been an entire charade. This is a disaster.
In Nairobi, Kenyatta's victory was greeted with celebrations. Hundreds of his supporters gathered in the heart of the city. Protests followed the declaration of the results in parts of Kisumu, one of Kenya's biggest cities and an opposition stronghold. Demonstrators also burned tires, set up roadblocks and clashed with the police in parts of the capital, Nairobi. Security has been beefed up across the country. Most Kenyans are keen to avoid a repeat of the violence that followed the 2007 election, in which more than 1,200 people were killed. For people here, there is a sense of relief, but without the opposition conceding, also some nervousness about the days ahead.
Police in Kisumu, Western Kenya, knocking on people's doors. They're looking for those throwing stones at them from inside their compounds. They clear the roads blocked by demonstrators here in Nyalenda, one of several neighborhoods where there have been violent protests after President Uhuru Kenyatta was declared winner of the just concluded presidential election. These angry men tell us police used live bullets to intimidate them. But they also insist they'll stand by opposition leader Raila Odinga, who has rejected the results declared by the Electoral Commission.
Yesterday's result doesn't reflect the real situation in the ground.
This man is recuperating in a nearby hospital. He was badly beaten. 3 others here have gunshot wounds. Martin Otieno says his brother was shot by police.
He fell after he was shot. He was crying and bleeding, but no one could help him because we all ran. When the police left, we came back, but there were no vehicles to take him to hospital, so we carried him and walked here.
It remains tense in these parts. People here refuse to accept Uhuru Kenyatta's re-election. It's the same in several parts of Nairobi. The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights says more than 20 people have been killed in various parts of the capital and Kisumu. Opposition leaders say the death toll is much higher.
Following the announcement of sham election results, we want to confirm that over 100 innocent Kenyans have been killed. 10 of them children.
Kenya's minister in charge of security insists that security forces are dealing with criminals pretending to be protesters.
We have been briefed about individuals who were trying to burn a bus. Now, the actual terminology we would use about those people is that they are criminals. And criminals are dealt with depending on the circumstances they are found and the force that they themselves are using against the security agencies.
Much of the rest of the country remains calm, but these people who are fiercely loyal to Raila Odinga say this is the only way they can express their frustration.
So what's just happened here is the majority of the Supreme Court said they found the election and the irregularities constituted an unconstitutional election. They said that there were irregularities that affected the integrity of the polls. Now, this was a 4-2 decision. There were 2 justices who dissented the opinion, but still there is a 4-person majority, which means the recent presidential elections are null and void. The Kenyans are expected to go to the polls again in 60 days. Now, it's important to note that Kenyatta, the current president, was not found culpable for any of the hacking or irregularities, as they say, that were conducted throughout the election. The IEBC, that's the Electoral Commission here, was largely blamed in the short opinion delivered by the justices for these irregularities that took place. In the end, they issued a declaration saying the election was not constitutional. Again, like I said, we expect new polls to take place. So Odinga brought charges to the court that both referred to President Kenyatta and his Jubilee Party about wrongs that he claims that they committed throughout the election. However, the court said pretty clearly that Kenyatta is not to blame for any of these so-called irregularities. They said that the responsibility really lays with the Independent Electoral Commission, which is a huge blow to them, obviously, and also to the international monitors, including John Kerry and the European Union, who really backed the Electoral Commission and their their findings that this election was free and fair. So it's a huge decision for the Supreme Court to say that that, in fact, was not the case.
This is not an electronic vote, ultimately. It's a paper ballot vote. And so it is determinable as to what happened. And I think it is important for all of the candidates to allow the process to be transparently put to the test. And then if they have a concern, go through the rule of law, go to the court process, and let the evidence be there for everybody to see. I think there is great legitimacy in the basic process. The question now that has to be tested is, did everybody follow it? And has it, in fact, has somebody attempted to alter it at any stage? But the important thing for people to know, for every Kenyan to know, this is their election. It's their individual votes that they waited in line for hours to cast. And we believe, the Carter Center believes, and the other observers believe, that we can determine whether or not those votes were properly cast, properly counted, properly transmitted, and whether or not the integrity of this election has been protected.
If you invest in this company, if you give me $1 million, I can guarantee you, you will make an extra $1 million.
I just like to walk in. I wouldn't need a special costume. Just dress like this. And I'd fly in. Bullshit.
Bullshit.
Bullshit. Bullshit. Bullshit.